So welcome to the next edition of the Punk CX podcast. I'm speaking to camera today because we're doing this kind of video in real life.
In real life, yes.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So on the podcast today, I have Jamie Anderson, who is the President Global Field Operations at UserTesting. Now, Jamie, who I've known for a wee while now, crumbs, I don't want to count the number of years.
It's a lot.
It's a few. Not a lot, it's a few. Anyway,
I think
but it is a lot. It is a lot.
It's at least a decade.
Yeah.
It has to be at least. Do you know, in an hour, that's not a lot for us now.
No.
Right. So
20%, just
yeah.
over, just under 20%. Still significant. Anyway, Jamie brings over 25 years of experience in the enterprise software industry. He has a proven track record in optimizing revenue-generating activities and building effective teams. Before joining UserTesting, Jamie served as CRO at both Amberse and Exactly Corporation, has held senior executive leadership roles at Marketo as part of the Adobe family, SAP, and Siebel Systems. He's now part of the Oracle family. Known for his expertise in scaling businesses and aligning revenue functions, Jamie is responsible for driving the company's revenue growth strategy. I think we've done the welcome bit, but I'll say it again. Welcome to the podcast, Jamie. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm great, and it's great to see you. And it's pretty unique to do this, and we're not doing it on a big screen.
Well, exactly. Going hello.
Yeah.
So I did the intro. Anything I missed that you want to add in?
No.
I will add in that Jamie used to be in a band.
Yeah, not a punk band.
No, not a punk band.
But I was definitely influenced by punk.
That's good. So look it up. Kind of Jamie Anderson music band.
Big Wednesday, Glasgow band.
Get yourself on YouTube. I'm sure there's some stuff that can be unearthed.
Yeah, possibly. It was a lot of fun. You know, it was a lot of fun. It was entrepreneurial. I think it was the 90s. But I grew up, you know, with that fascination with music. You know, my grandfather was a great musician. My uncle was a session guitar player. Played a little bit with Thin Lizzy. I kind of grew up in that environment. You know, big parties at New Year in Glasgow.
Yeah.
Everybody did their thing. My grandfather got to play the trumpet. My auntie would sing. My uncle and his pals would do. It was just music was really important. Mm-hmm. And what I loved was the attitude of punk.
Yeah,
probably more than the music. You know, to be honest, I think it was some great things around the time. But I was a little too young at the time. I kind of came on the back of it, right?
I mean, I think you and I are probably of the same age. I'm 55.
I'm 54.
Right, so it's same sort of year. So I'm too young to be original sort of first wave of punk. My formative music genre was always new wave ska.
Yes.
Specials, select
specials. I love the special.
You know, all that sort of two-tone sort of thing. But that was inspired by both reggae and kind of punk, and it came out of it. And then I got into post-punk after that. So
well, it was
a bigger way.
To me, I mean, this is probably not where you want the podcast to go, right?
I don't care.
But let's do it anyway. But to me, it was that the post-punk piece was really interesting because you obviously had, you had the specials, then you had the Fun Boy 3 that grew out of that. With the Police, you know, as well, which was which, you know, you could in no way describe as really punk, right? The thing about it was kind of like that post-punk, and in Scotland, because for me, what came out of the post-punk in Scotland was Aztec Camera and Orange Juice.
Yeah.
And I love both those bands. So I'm a huge Edwyn Collins and Roddy Frame fan. So they kind of paved the way for me as a kid, sitting in my bedroom, dreaming, playing the guitar. And then Roddy Frame said something which really stuck with me, because obviously Roddy was in Postcard Records, the same as Edwyn Collins at the time, Joseph Kay and these bands from Glasgow in the early 80s. That was my musical awakening. And I remember Roddy Frame talking about Postcard Records probably in about 1987, obviously went on and he was with Warner. Mm-hmm. And he's saying what he loved about it was, you know, as a young boy, you know, writing a song was like writing a postcard and sending it to the world. Huh? And you don't know where it's going to go.
No.
And I was sort of inspired by that as a kind of young songwriter myself. And it was the thing that you could do it. There was just this feeling and this, I think the Glasgow music scene, like Liverpool and Glasgow in the late 80s and early 90s, it was vibrant. Mm-hmm. So you felt you could do it. You could get a gig. And that was what it was all about, go out and play. And so I think even into kind of corporate life, I guess eventually, I've always had that mentality that if you want to do it, you can go and make it happen. And that's the punk attitude.
Completely. It's a bit like you go, well, you don't need all of this sort of stuff. You just can go and do it, whether it's fanzines or starting your own record label or setting up your own gigs, doing your own marketing, flyering, all that type of stuff, sticking everything in a van and off you go. And it's just like, it's just like, have a go at it.
Yeah.
And it might not work. And I think that's the fascinating thing we're talking about modern corporate life. And that's one of the things I think about punk is that in modern corporate life, people talk about building this culture of experimentation, fail fast, learn and fail fast sort of thing. And a lot of it's talk. And a lot of it, so many people don't quite live up to the hype of it in terms of that failing fast and actually experimenting at scale and everything else. And I know that's part of kind of what we're going to go talk about.
Yeah.
And so I think there's just analogies. There's things that we can learn from it. But I mean, don't want to get completely sidetracked because we'll go down rabbit holes around music and stuff. But I know we've known each other for a while. We were having a conversation about setting up this kind of podcast, and I wanted to revisit some of the things that we talked about because we had a bit of a rummage around, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Let's kind of have a conversation about that. And you said to me, let me get this right. So the first thing you said to me that I thought was really interesting, I wanted to explore with you, is that there's a mismatch between what companies think they're delivering and what customers actually experience, and that can be fixed with human-first design.
Yeah.
And I was a bit like, okay, that sounds important. Tell me what you mean by that.
So there's a piece of research recently that, went across the top 100 brands.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked the brand, how important is customer experience? Do you deliver a great customer experience? And asked them to kind of quantify areas where, and at the end of it, it was 87% of them felt that they delivered a great customer experience. And the problem was that they then asked their customers, and less than 20% of them agreed.
Yeah.
I mean, we called it the experience gap, right? And we wanted to dig into and understand why. I mean, it's an experience chasm as opposed to a gap.
Delusional.
and it is this thing that over time, I mean, so I'll pick up on a couple of things you said. This idea of fail fast, right? There was a time when that was definitely true.
Right.
When the first mobile devices came out, people started releasing apps, and the app became another channel itself. Yeah. Aside from obviously, you and I have kind of grown up. The first big wave of doing something outside a branch was a call center. A branch or a store, it was a call center. Then it was the internet, which became another distinct channel. Then apps, on the phone became another distinct channel. And when the phone came out at first, and everybody's trying to find their way around it. By the way, I didn't want one. I'll tell you why. I didn't want an iPhone. I loved my iPod. And I used to say, I don't want people phoning me when I'm listening to my music, right? As if that because it would really annoy me. Now it's all one thing. But I still get annoyed if somebody phones me when I'm listening to something. That's that all by. All that aside, I think then we moved to this scenario where people were developing apps to communicate with customers. In the beginning, such was the rush to get ahead of everybody else. This kind of build fast, fail fast mentality, it was right? The age of digital transformation. Let's build out, new commerce storefronts. Let's put more personalization in. Build fast, fail fast, build fast, fail fast. I remember Brian Solis, a good pal of mine. I've done, and I've done some podcasts with Brian over the years. He wrote the book around, and he coined the term digital Darwinism.
Yes.
Right. So this was this idea that, over time, if people are if you're not keeping up with the pace of digital transformation, your brand becomes obsolete. So I think there was an inherent fear of we've got to be at the forefront. I think we're reaching another element of that where the consumer is now and particularly the younger generation, this is so ubiquitous, this idea. And I'll come back to that. I'll probably talk about AI a bit later, right?
Sure.
Come back and a point.
Inevitable.
Possibly. I'm pointing at the phone here. We come back to this thing. So we adapted to having things like phones and tablets, same as laptops and all that. The generation right now has grown up only really being in a world with phones and being super connected.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, they are less forgiving of a poor app experience because the bar is now so high. So this idea of, like build fast, fail fast, well, not really, because if you fail once, you've lost the consumer. Literally, if your app sucks, I ain't going to shop with you. I'm not going to bank with you. You've lost my trust. You've lost credibility and all those things. So when I talk about testing with humans for human consumption, well, of course, because why would you go to the effort of building something, launching it, putting it out there, and not knowing whether it was going to be successful, not having appropriately tested it with real people? And I think that's what it comes down to. So when I talked about that, I think, again, if you want to close that chasm on customer experience, test often, right? And test with your target intended audience. And now I see it extend with a lot of our customers into not just testing an app or a product experience, testing a physical experience. If you're an airline, for example, some airlines have, they have control over the schedule, who goes in their plane, they control over, like the quality of the food, the staff, the service. They have no control over the airport experience. And some of them, as you know, some of the ones that we fly up and down to London with have completely outsourced the check-in process to a third party.
Yeah,
right.
They're learning the kind of the lessons around logistics that some e-commerce brands have learned kind of like 10 years ago. It's like going, if you don't control that.
If you don't control it, and again, being able to, put something on the device that allows the customer to give immediate feedback of, well, look, this is the experience and there's a way to do it. So I do think we're seeing that, bleeding over into, bridging the physical experience piece as well. But no, it's fascinating. If you're not testing for your target intended audience, the other one I was going to say was marketing campaigns. I as a former CMO, I often look back and outside of maybe a focus group, I don't think we did appropriate testing. Some of our campaigns hit the mark, some of them didn't. But we were doing the equivalent in marketing of launching a product, right? Obviously our product was the campaign, but launching a product into a full production environment without appropriately testing. Every marketer, every, like brand leader is measured on return on ad spend. Why wouldn't you properly test this with your target intended audience?
Are you meaning sort of like A/B testing, or are you being pre?
Oh yeah, I'm talking about your creative.
Right. Okay.
I'm not saying it has to be fully validated with obviously your audience, but the last thing you want to do is make a major brand mistake.
Right.
And put out something that doesn't meet. Maybe you want to move to a new audience, but it doesn't alienate your existing audience in the process. There's imagery that you could use that might be off color. There's the way you explain a product or describe it, it might not resonate with the audience, so it doesn't pop, it doesn't grab people's attention, which is the whole point of advertising. So why wouldn't you test that to improve the likelihood of a good return on your ad spend?
I'll tell you what, I'm not sure it was tested, but I'll tell you what, have you seen there's an ad right now that features Samuel L. Jackson and Vattenfall. Now, Vattenfall are a wind farm.
I haven't seen it.
Wind farm kind of company. But as part of that, there's this like spin-off because they're working with this, I think it's like the Seaweed Crisp Company.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because they're being able to grow seaweed off the base of these wind farms. And it's a brilliant piece of a piece of film, but the writing in it is just absolutely.
Oh, I need to see it.
I'm not going to tell you what the tagline is, but it's just brilliant. It's brilliantly nuanced in terms of how you can say the same thing with a slightly different tone, and it just It changes the perspective. Anyway, that's a clue. Look it up
Oh,
because that is
excellent.
brilliant. I just one because I also love Samuel L. Jackson, but it's just that to your point that sort of like if that was done wrong,
Yeah.
it could go kind of very wrong. And we see all these different ad examples where, where it creates such a reaction or it just goes can go so badly wrong. Some people might say, well, yeah, they're by design sometimes. But particularly if you're, say you're in a tech environment and you're launching into your message, you're trying to change your messaging into a kind of into a market, well, then you don't want to be, you want to, as you say, you want to get something that pops. It doesn't want to be a sea of sameness type of message because like, well, what's the point? You're like, well, why is that different to anybody else? And so, yeah, you want to test that.
I think there's definitely a whole range of things, in essence, that touch the customer, impact the customer experience, that still to this day are not tested.
Yeah.
And I think it does have an impact. That's why you end up with this huge chasm between what the brand thinks or the company thinks are doing really well and actually what the customer perceives in the other end.
Yeah. And I think that's what was interesting is that's almost always been the case. And was it Bain or BCG did a study that was like, at least a decade ago, and they were like saying 80% of execs think they deliver superior kind of service and experience, and about 8% of customers, 8 or 9% of customers agree. Now, you say that the gap is closed kind of marginally, but it's the same thing. And I think the context has shifted.
Yeah.
But I think that the idea about the gap between what brands think they're doing and basically what their customers are doing is there. There is a gap, and that's that you're kind of saying, actually testing stuff is the way it's kind of.
It's one dimension to it. I mean, obviously that brand perception and how the customer, perceives it. The other angle is, and again, I think this bit is proven, and it's powerful. Yet for some reason, I think it's also sometimes missed when it comes to customer experience, that brands that provide the best customer experience generally, particularly those, publicly listed companies, the stock performs better.
Yeah.
And there's a study that goes back 14 years and it's every year. There used to be a thing, and it, right? The Forrester Customer Experience Index, which was effectively Forrester doing mystery shopping exercises on I think it was the S&P 500 companies. And then John Peacock from a company called Watermark Consulting.
And John.
They took that, the Forrester data, and they went, how does this correlate to stock performance over the same period? And over the same period, the companies that had a superior customer experience, independently validated, the stock performed better, almost 5 times better than the laggards, the people that literally didn't provide a great cut or didn't value it or in no way had a customer experience.
Service to it or something.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's a commercial imperative behind getting it right, beyond kind of differentiation of your brand and so on. I think it remains a hugely interesting area.
Before we move on to the next thing I wanted to ask you about, the research that you kind of mentioned, is that user testing research? They talked about this was the research that you did.
Gosh, so we did follow-up research on the initial piece.
Right, okay.
So I can't remember the original source of the research, but then we did a lot of follow-up work. So again, if you check our blogs and our reports, and we've been doing a lot of different articles on this recently.
I will put a link in that in the notes. The next thing I wanted to talk about, and we sort of alluded to it, is this. Everybody's talking about AI right now.
Yeah,
and that's fine because I think the possibilities are quite incredible right now, and it's kind of mind blowing, and it's sometimes hard to keep up. But there's also a lot of risks and challenges with getting it sort of right. And you said something when we were talking that you believe there's a risk that a use of, or like an overuse of AI can risk disconnecting teams from real human needs if left unsupervised. Because a lot of people are sort of trying to move to the point where almost things that are on autopilot, particularly with the rise of agentic AI and things. And I wanted to, you to help me understand what you meant by that. And that, because you talked also about you need to be purposeful in our use of these technologies and these tools. And so I just wanted to dig into that a little bit. Help me understand what you mean by that.
Right. I'll try. Because it's an ever moving target at the moment. I think the starting point of a lot of discussion around artificial intelligence has been that, I've heard people say things like, it's the end of Google search. It's the end of, effectively websites as we know it. And I'll talk about that in a minute. I think
it's largely rubbish, but never mind.
I agree, but here's why I agree with it. I think that...
I think it'll change.
No, here's why I agree with what you said, that I think it's largely rubbish. It's been built up into this huge thing, AI, talking to AI and making decisions. Now, I think that's when you get into agentic. So...
we'll let the technology do this thing and we'll just go down the pub.
Well, we'll cover this. And by the way, I think actually... Here's my prediction. For what it's worth, I can make a prediction because nobody's going to hold me accountable to it. I can pretend to be a big analyst firm.
Nostradamus.
But I actually think if you go back in time, right, and you think about all the things we've gone through from desktop machines, to laptops, to then with the mobile phone, then with tablet and everything else, right? I think about each of these things as channels, right? Now, I was doing a talk recently and I said, how many people have a desktop device at home, right? How many people actually have a desktop that they sit in front of and they work at? And I say about 80% of the audience put their hands up. They've got a desktop, like a big app. I've got I've got a 27-inch, like iMac that I work from and I enjoy it, right? I like sitting there. I also have a laptop. I've got a phone, and I was told 15 years ago, 2010 or whatever, that the phone has so much computing power in the palm of your hand that eventually the desktop machine will go away. They still sell extremely well. They look beautiful, right? And they're very functional for certain things. I have a laptop. Of course I have a laptop. There's tablets knocking about the house. I don't know how many, but there's tablets knocking about the house. And so all these things have been evolutions that haven't fully moved people off these other devices. Agentic AI and AI is another part of that. Now, what it will do, if you think about agentic commerce, to a degree, it does disintermediate some of the things around search engine optimization because it's no longer relevant with agentic, right? It does disintermediate some of the things around website, like some of your website design, but does it mean it goes away? No, because there are certain things that are not commodities that people will want to go and look at. And in the same way, when you look at something on a website, at some point you go, I kind of like to see that, right? Particularly high value items, or again, fashion, because it's a very personal thing. You want to go and try clothes on or whatever.
Or art, or anything that has an aesthetic.
Yes.
An emotional connection kind of like to it.
And so here we go, we'll talk about emotion in a minute as well. But so I think that it is going to blend in seamlessly, and it's going to change the way in which companies think about how they make sure their products and services get to the front. Now, I'll give you a couple of statistics on agentic because I found this absolutely fascinating. So 8.9 million people have already done an agent to agent, an AI to AI transaction, commercial transaction.
8.9 million just globally?
Yes, globally. Okay. 8.9 million people. They actually estimate the market to be a $290 billion market for agentic commerce. So this is you basically saying, I'll give you an example. I'm looking for, a skin cream of this kind of type. I don't want to spend any more than $40. It's going to go away, talk to the agentic interface on the other side, and it's going to come up with the best price, depending on, regardless of brand, regardless of retail, it's going to come up with the best choice, shipping it within the time frame you want, and it will present it to you, and you'll say yes. Now, at no point have you gone on the internet to browse for that, because to you it's maybe more of a commodity purchase. I can think of people saying, like buying a holiday for a family of 4. Hey, we want to go to Turkey. We don't want to spend any more than $4,000 on this holiday. We want to go away for 2 weeks, whatever it happens to be. Find the best flights. We want to fly out of Edinburgh. We want day flights. We don't want to fly during. You could do all that, and it comes back and says, here are your top 3 choices, or here is the best choice. Which one do you want? It's a 5-star rated, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'll do that. It could just be for flights. I mean, flights is an ultimate commodity. I mean, it's pretty much the same service no matter who you go with.
Yeah.
That makes a ton of sense. But does it replace the need for these other things? No. Because they become more of an extension of the overall experience.
Yeah.
There's aspects of it emotional. But what it means for the product and the service providers is, how do they surface their goods and services to the agentic? Well, they're going to have an agentic interface. That
I think there's also another element to that, and this is kind of thing that I kind of was thinking about late last year, because about this whole, the impact of generative search engines on that whole shopping research experience.
Yes.
And it goes back to almost like a point earlier around brand marketing. And how do you abrogate responsibility in terms of generating an awareness or place of mind in a customer's kind of mind to kind of that technology, or do you actually start bringing back other brand related marketing activities which allows you to grab mind share, to differentiate yourself?
I think you have
and so you have to get to this thing, so the digital, it gets amped up and changes, but actually some of the old school stuff that you go like, we need some activation sort of thing so we can grab some mind share. So when somebody says, I need to book a holiday, but I saw this thing about kind of hotels and things, do this brand have kind of hotels in Turkey so we can fly out to and do that kind of, because what I liked about their thing was it's all about family oriented and it's all about service and great kind of around the pool and blah, blah, blah. There.
I think you're right. I think there's almost like a little renaissance of that classic brand marketing, brand values.
Yeah.
And then also how you as a company have to re-architect that so that it's part of that agentic interface on your side. So the other agent that's searching can find that.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating. I think it opens up whole new opportunities.
Oh, completely. And it makes it complicated.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a bit like I don't have to be a technology sort of thing, but I need to think about, activation and creating kind of mind share from other kind of like campaigns and like going, and it's like, how do you balance all of that sort of like stuff?
And it's going to be about continual refinement.
Yeah.
Right.
And that goes back to your point around testing.
Constantly, I think, continually refining it, because you'll need to measure. One of the things that's going to remain true, I think, about AI for a while, certainly, is emotional. How is it going to interpret and understand the emotional context? At the heart of advertising, and the heart of advertising and any kind of marketing, is still that an emotional response to an advert creates a 6 times more likely reason to purchase. And when you get to that point, all of the research that we're doing, when you and I see something that just really appeals, it's something we want, emotionally we bought it. And now we spend the next 2 or 3 weeks finding the justification as to why we should buy it. The logic comes in, but emotion will trump logic. So again,
every time,
every single time. And it's like literally how, AI, to continually have the trust. So I think there's still that reticence about how much data you share and how much you can trust the AI. So continually refining it so that, in situations where, there's still some odd responses you get from AI, and you go, maybe my prompt was wrong, maybe it didn't understand what I was asking. Is that a language thing? Is it, and particularly with a conversational interface, picking up the nuances of our brogue along with others.
Maybe we should start a Scottish LLM.
Definitely. Why? So I just think to myself, there is so many areas of it which is going to require consistent refinement. We're now actually, on that basis, we're back into the move fast, fail fast, right, environment. So, because that's where the advantage is going to come.
I think the other thing I would say that what's becoming increasingly apparent, because people are trying to figure out this kind of thing, is that because just, I don't know, maybe I'm just complicating it even further, is the emerging landscape around what some of these generative AI engines are picking up and using as kind of sources, and how the role of earned media is still really strong, and it's the paid media that seems to be dropping in importance. And so then you got brands that have got to factor into kind of that. So you build these kind of campaigns that are going to resonate with kind of people, but you want to get people that are going to talk about them in a value add kind of way, and whether it's their industry press or kind of like the commentary kind of ecosystem that sits around that, because that's what some of these engines are actually using to kind of to validate kind of their results that they're kind of coming up. And so it's just this, it is like, it reminds me of what's that film with Eddie Murphy, Golden Child, back in the 90s? Remember that one?
I do, yeah, vaguely.
Yeah. There was a point where he was going across this chasm, sort of like, it was like all these different kind of like, it was almost like stepping stones across it, and they would either kind of like descend or explode or whatever. And it's like such a moving landscape right now. It's completely uncertain, but I think my reading of this thing is that you've got to look at you can't go all in on just one thing. You can't just optimize on the generative search engine optimization, because if you do that, it's like, realize that that's going to change. It's consistently changed. So you end up having to take a very strategic kind of view. It has to involve brand kind of activation. It has to involve kind of the generative search engine. It has to involve doing things like paid media, but it also has to include kind of earned media. And it's like, it's hard, it's complicated. That's just the world that we kind of live in. But the essential part of all that sort of stuff, there's no hard or fast right answers. That some things you'll get wrong, but you're like, you got to iterate, you got to test all of the time. You got to be kind of moving around. You got to be agile in how you respond to this sort of stuff, because what you thought was true last week may not be kind of like true next week.
Yeah,
and I think that's the key thing. And I mean, would you say that's probably some of the key lessons that you see brands that are getting it right are sort of like learning from this sort of stuff? Or is there other things that brands are doing that you think actually they're getting it right?
No, I think the ones that continually test and find more meaningful ways to understand who their customer are and how customer needs, preferences, change over time is important as well. I mean, Google recently did I think a pretty big brand refresh around their brand elements, like how those brand elements appear in their products, right? So whether it's the productivity tools or whether it's other aspects of their product catalog, and controlling the brand across multiple products is really quite tough. But I heard a great story from the design lead over at Google when I was overseeing them a couple of months ago in San Francisco, and he shared this amazing story of, look, we didn't necessarily go into this situation thinking we need a brand refresh, but we were challenged. It was like, look, we've had the same brand elements for a long period of time, and what we do is when we develop it, when we put in the brand infrastructure in place and the framework for our designers and our product owners to like build product using this brand framework, obviously that's them, they're kind of locked in. So what I said to my designers was, look, you're free. I want you to go absolutely crazy. I want you to go bonkers, right? And just imagine things that you've always wanted to do with the brand, right? And look, you've got carte blanche. Try different things, put them out there, and let's ask, our customers what they think.
Right.
They did this with user testing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So they then got all this feedback, hours and hours, hundreds of hours, thousands of hours of feedback, from individual customers saying, well, I like that, I don't like that. And they then distilled it down into what people really, really loved about some of the new brand elements and what they went stay absolutely away from. And they started to implement parts of that.
Right.
So they did a brand refresh, right, in complete concert with the customer of all the demographics covering them and doing something which delighted the customer as well, but gave them a fresh perspective to modernize like their product suite. And I think that's really cool. And that ability to do that,
It's completely different to how you would do a brand refresh in sort of old money, as it were.
well,
We should be like, you'd outsource it to, you do a brief, outsource it to an agency, they come back and like, here's all the different options, and then you can think about how you implement it. Well, actually, it's almost like a brand refresh in the,
but it shows it shows a commitment to the customer and actually the end user, because that consumer, let's just call them the consumer, right? They are consuming the products every day. They're using them every day. And what do they want to see in it? How does it make navigation easier for them? How does it make them feel more affinity with the brand that they use? And I love that.
Yeah, because that reminds me of something else that you kind of said, where you go, many rather digital experiences suck.
I probably did. Yeah.
And I think that's probably true. And it's fascinating. And again, we come back to that sort of testing thing. I'm doing things iteratively and in concert kind of with kind of customers. And I think it feels to me that many people might assume that doing that iterative in concert sort of approach takes longer and it's time consuming. But actually, I think they'd be wrong, right?
Well, look, in that situation, I think what Frank over at Google was basically proving to also his design team is like, do you know what? You can think outside the box, right? You can get customer validation within an hour, right? You can go and put a concept out there, leave your desk at 5 o'clock in the evening or 6 o'clock in the evening, and you come in at 8 a.m. the next morning, and there's all this feedback from, your customers that want to help you improve and say, well, I really like this. And they're engaged. And that's the other thing about it, is there's a really then strong engagement between, the brand itself and their customer out there, which again, I think is often missed because people are not testing. They're going back to, I know Prince liked to party like it's 1999, but brands don't need to freaking market that it's 1999. You go to your agency, you get the agency pitch, you get 3 or 4 options, you then workshop them, and then you get a focus group, and then somebody very loud in the focus group has a very strong opinion, so everybody in the focus group has that opinion. And then you go and you show the best 2, and then the CEO goes, I like that one, and that's it.
Because that's the hippo opinion, right?
Yeah, and then you end up with something where everybody feels really good about it, and then you launch,
and then you come back to the chasm. The brands think they're doing a great job, and then customers turn around and go, yeah.
We have the tools, and we have the technology, and we have the reach, literally, to go and ask our customers, for their feedback and their opinion. And look, it doesn't mean in every situation that, you have to go with this homogenized kind of like view. What I love about particularly what we do is it's a lot of the outlier stuff that you won't get from even a survey. We do surveys, right? But I always say, look, a survey, you're going to get a pre-programmed response to a pre-programmed set of questions that you ask. So I think that's good directionally. But if you then take that and you give people the ability to think out loud, to talk, to articulate with emotion, right? To show the things that, they have a strong preference of, all of a sudden these outliers of people, I never thought that. And but
there's gold in those outliers.
The gold, because you go, well, wait a minute, right? This either it's a horrible outlier or it's one that you go, well, this is interesting, this is new. There was a story, I'm just trying to remember one of our customers, it's terrible. There's a story about how they redesigned their warranty process.
Okay.
Because the customer went, well, look, blah, 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 this is all good. But actually, I bought this bed 6 months ago and I really wasn't, super happy with it. And I thought, I should be able to replace that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the CEO saw it. Now, it went through all the normal channels, but the CEO saw that one clip and went, we should have if somebody doesn't like the bed after 12 months, we should just give them a new mattress.
Right.
And that became the thing. Sometimes what we do with surveys and feedback loops in general is we tie them to a score like an NPS or a CSAT or something, and it becomes homogenized, and you lack the why behind this kind of like answer. And look, I get it. Some people's bonuses are paid to increase CSAT by this, increase their NPS by this, and I get that. But there's an element missing. It's like a voice of the customer program. It's exactly like a voice of the customer program that deals in surveys.
You're not forcing somebody into this kind of like system or kind of like framework and stuff. You're basically going, what do you think of that? And it's like a free sort of thing. And you're not forcing them they can type if they like, but they can also just kind of go, here's what I think.
And when someone talks, like you and I talking just now, right? When we talk, we get passionate about this subject because we love it, right? We know what great customer experience is. We know what customer experience that sucks is. And we've experienced it. And how does it make us feel? Emotional.
Sure.
And this is that bridge, again, going back to talking about AI, it's that emotional bridge.
Yeah.
I think it's still there.
Yeah.
People still want to experience things. So you're talking, I was laughing when you're talking about, because I had the same discussion with a pal. It's like, oh, well, if AI is going to replace all programmers, if AI is going to replace shopping and we're just going to go buy it, we'd all go to the pub, right? But we'll all be unemployed at the pub. Right. Who's buying stuff then? Because if I'm unemployed, I'm not going to buy anything. And buying is an emotional thing. So the need for it comes from a place of need, desire, in some cases. And that's an emotional thing at its core.
Yeah, and then also you want to be, feel valued, and then you're delivering and creating kind of value because you're playing up your part, as it were, and that's whole part of that sort of employment sort of thing. But I think the things that we've been talking about is that that idea about testing, about understanding your customers, not necessarily doing it on a survey sort of thing, but actually involving them in a sort of a decision-making, thinking kind of process, because you'll learn a whole bunch of stuff and you can do it fast and you can collapse that chasm that exists between, what brands think about the service and experience that they deliver and kind of what kind of customers think, which feels like a perennial kind of brand, but it's possible to collapse it. Do you have an example that you hold up and you go, that might be there are probably a customer of yours and you go like, these guys, I think they've just got it. They just do this. It's in it's either in their DNA or they've built it kind of into kind of what they do, and they just consistently kind of like, deliver.
Companies that I see doing it.
Yeah. Or even just like, or customers of yours that you think, I know you mentioned kind of Google and stuff, but like, there are other ones that you think actually they're a good one to watch.
I think there was an interesting one recently. I saw L'Oreal Paris do a really interesting thing around the skincare range,
right?
Which was to create, and this leads actually into something else as well, but it leads to a much more immersive, inclusive experience across helping people choose the right shades for their complexions, based on basically everybody's got kind of different complexions and things, but create an online tool which then allows them to test and to basically give them different options. And then it helps with the purchase process, but it also helps understand that not everybody's skin is ultimately the same and they react in different ways. So I thought that was a really interesting one. I think Gymshark as well, another customer, they continually innovate, how they present their products to their customers. They get the feedback on, how, products are worn. People like to see how a product is worn, rather than just see like the Shein view of a product, and then you get it and you go, well, that looks nothing like what I saw.
That looks like a bag of spuds.
Yeah. So I do think there are great examples in just like, you know, commerce and websites and things. I mean, but brands that I think have kind of punked up their industry a little bit are the challenger brands and things like financial services. So I think Monzo and Revolut, I think, are two brands that, you know, beyond just, you know, how they do their thing today, I'm interested in how they disrupted the industry. So beyond just, you know, this is getting into the product. Banking still to this day, you log into, you know, whether it's HSBC or you log into HBOS or whoever it is, and you're presented with, you know, your balance, you know, and your transactions. And what I liked was they would basically show you who you're spending with. They would give you analytics on top of it, which I think was definitely a bit different. It helps you understand your spending more, which when you're banking with somebody, be probably quite good to know.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think the kind of that open banking sort of thing kind of give a lot of the big incumbents a bit of a kick up the bum, really.
It did. And having said that, what's interesting is that they still, particularly in the US, the big brands, right, in that financial services sector still hold more than the lion's share, right? And their digital services that are coming in on top are actually getting pretty good. So it's interesting to see. People talk a lot about the challenger brands in these areas, but, you know, people are not putting a lot of money with them.
Yeah, I sometimes think it's like, it goes back to your point around emotions and trust and belief in kind of what's going to happen, because in many cases it's like, well, you know, it's important, and people go, oh, if I put it all with a challenger brand, then it's a bit like, oh no, I'd rather kind of stick with heritage. Now, there's no guarantee of that, but it's an illogical, emotional sort of response. It's
illogical, emotional. It's part of, I think some of it's part of your upbringing and the brands that you've seen. Like, I think the financial services industry has done a great job over the last, you know, 17 years, re-establishing the trust, building liquidity in, you know, to what they do. I think things like, I mean, let's put it this way, there's no doubt that Vanguard, for example, charge a lot less in fees than St. James's Place or something like that, right?
Sure.
There's no doubt about that. But then St. James's Place still have the highest number of assets under management by a long way. Why? Well, people know they're paying more for the advice, but there's an element, they feel certainly, of safety, you know, within that. Whereas, yeah, I'll make some investments with Vanguard and some of the other people, but from a retirement, my nest egg, these things, am I going to trust a challenger brand yet? And I think the answer is probably no. So there is still that again. That's an emotional response. Is it logical? Well, if somebody's taking 5 times the amount out of your pot for charges than Vanguard, then it's not logical at all. Why would you be with that? There's an emotional element to it.
Yeah. And that's the kind of the challenge. You've got to understand that as a brand, and you only understand that by actually leaning into it and talking to people, and, you know, and testing things and finding out what works. Jamie, I'm just conscious of
Sure,
kind of like time and stuff, but I think you've answered one of my quick fire questions already, but I'll revisit it. But anything else that you want to add that we haven't covered that before I go into some quick fire questions?
No, let's do quick fire, because we've talked a lot. You're probably going to have to edit this.
I'm not going to edit anything. I'm not going to edit shit, because this is it. This is the rummage around kind of people.
This is the punk, right?
This is it. I don't care less. It's like the rummage, and if you don't like it, you know what
you can disagree with.
Yeah,
I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, it's good stuff, and it's that I think that the gold in it, like you were saying, is that you take all this sort of like stuff, and there'll be a thing. There always is a thing or a couple of things. You're like, oh, no, that's interesting. It's just like the insight, rather than talking about just the random sort of like stuff broad things that everybody can talks about. You're like, oh, that's an interesting kind of thing, and, you know, and that's the thing that lands. It is for me. That's what I get out of it. But quick fire questions, boiling everything down. We've talked a whole bunch of different things. So what I like to do is to get
Now you're going to
deployed.
find out what's at the top of my mind, and it might not be.
Well, so here's the thing. Complete this sentence, Jamie. If you want to improve your customer experience, Jamie says, do this, ... Complete that sentence.
Always talk to your customers. Always get customer feedback. It doesn't end when the experience ends, right? It doesn't have to be at an intervention point.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the time. Find a way to get that feedback. Make it meaningful. Put the customer's voice at the heart of your voice of the customer program.
Mm-hmm.
Don't rely on surveys alone.
Mm-hmm.
Find other ways to connect with customer. Listen to them. That's key.
It's like a flywheel. Get it going and just keep it. It's like a gyroscope. You just got to keep it going and going and going. And
well, the fact that you can present this data, and then I can give you through user testing a highlight reel of what these customers that represent each of these trends actually say, and show your board. Your CEO will react when he hears or she exactly what the customer thinks, feels. They have an emotional response.
Yeah, of course. I always say that kind of like I think there's different levels to that sort of like leadership and the sort of experience. I sometimes say that data informs us, stories move us.
Yes.
But then the third level is experiences compel us.
Yes, that's a great point.
And so you go like, but if you you can use the testing and the commentary and things that the views of your customers to actually move your execs. And if you get them interested, then you can get them closer to the experience, and then you can see things happen in real life, and then they're going like, oh my God.
I think every board, we do this when we get together as a team. I think every board meeting should have a 15-minute section on what are our customers saying about us. Mm-hmm. And again, just a highlight reel of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah. It's a great barometer for how you're doing as a business.
Absolutely, 100%. I'll revisit the punk one now. You can say Monzo and Revolut again, but like, what company or brand do you think has taken a more punk approach to customer experience? That you just go like, this, I love it. They're smashing it. It's just so different. It's so iconic, differentiated, stand out, all that type of stuff.
It's not a new one, but I like the whole Patagonia message about buy this jacket and this is the only jacket you ever need. And it was that whole element of sustainability, which kicked back against the classic retail Depeche Mode, fast fashion type of thing, which was like, you've got the brands on the high street, like your Primarks of the world, which is stack it high, sell it cheap, discard. And I liked that it was the opposite of that. Yeah. And we will repair this for you. You'll wear this for life. I liked that. I thought that was really compelling.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And finally, final question, and this is what I've been doing recently, is I think we can all agree world's pretty weird right now, and there's quite a lot of doom scrolling going on. So I've been asking people to share with me a good news story. So tell me a good news story. Something you've seen over the last week that you've gone, that's just ace. That's brilliant. It's made me smile. Felt maybe kind of like, it's a good thing.
Oh, recent. I said there's so many things, right? That have come up. I smiled a little bit when Taylor Swift got engaged because I thought to myself, I actually admire her as a songwriter, and I think she's a really prolific songwriter. But I'm thinking, will this change her music? What's she going to write about in the new album? Because normally it's because she's had a bad experience. So now she's engaged. Are we going to get a super happy Taylor album? Who knows, right? So I thought of that. I also saw recently a breakdown. It's really old, but I saw a breakdown of all of the harmonies in Wouldn't It Be Nice? Right, it's an individual harmony piece, and there is a 4-part harmony, which I kind of knew, but I hadn't heard it broken down into its individual constituent parts. Okay, and there's a 4-part harmony that sits underneath the lead vocal track of Wouldn't It Be Nice, which is then a 5th part, and it just reinforced my view that Brian Wilson, who passed away obviously this year, was a modern Mozart. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Love it. I love it. That's so random but brilliant. And that's exactly why I asked that kind of question, just because it's a bit like you see the things that kind of that resonate with people, but I will point people in that sort of direction. But I just want to say, Jamie, thank you for spending time with me today and have a bit of a rummage around.
Yeah.
That's been great. And that's all I have today. So thank you.
Awesome. We'll do it again sometime.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, what a great interview. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Find out more about me and the work that I do at adrianswinscoe.com. Do leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And if you have any comments, feedback, or questions about the podcast, then feel free to send me a message to podcast@adrianswinscoe.com. And do tune in again. Thanks very much.